I'm Sean Bowes, concert visual designer in Los Angeles, California. Today, we're talking about MIDI controllers. If you are just starting out VJing, you probably need a MIDI controller, but which one should you get? The short answer is, it doesn't really matter. As long as you have a few knobs and buttons and sliders to play around with, you're good. But if you're looking for some recommendations, this is a list of MIDI controllers that I think are pretty good, especially for beginners. Links are down in the description if you want to check them out. First up, the APC40 Mark II. You know it, you love it. A lot of VJs use it, and that's for good reason. You have a ton of options with this one. It's got a huge grid of buttons, a few different banks of knobs, and a bunch of sliders across the bottom, including a crossfader. It's about the size of a medium or large laptop, so it's fairly portable, and you can get them just about anywhere. It also has tons of LED color customization that you can do on all the buttons, so you can really customize your layout. It's pretty great. I use this one all the time, and I have for several years. So, great option with a ton of flexibility. Next up, the Novation Control XL. This is another great controller that a lot of my friends use all the time. It has a ton of different control options, a bunch of knobs up top. It's actually sort of like a channel mixer layout for like audio. So plenty of knobs, plenty of sliders also along the bottom, and it's got a good number of buttons too. And as a bonus, it also has this bank selector, so you actually get double what you see there. You're able to map it twice and then switch between the two banks. So that's super cool. The build quality is really good, and it's a pretty good size. Now we're talking about the Tractor Control F1. All the cool kids are using this one lately. It's built like a tank. It's got faders, buttons, super sturdy. It's sort of a thin, long rectangle form factor, and so it's great for slipping into a bag or a Pelican case for the road. You only get a few of each thing. Like you got 4 knobs, 4 sliders, and I think like 16 buttons. But some huge shows are run off these things, so it's more than enough to do cool shit with, and you'll have a really solid and flexible setup worth checking out. Next up, the APC Mini. This is really just a minified version of the APC40. It doesn't have any knobs, so that's sort of a drawback, but it has a ton of buttons still, and it has a bunch of sliders. It's also super tiny and light, which is cool, but the build quality is a little plasticky. But with this one, it's all about portability and saving space, and it's pretty affordable also. APC Mini, affordable, light, and still plenty of options to play with if you're tight on money or space, or just like little cute guys. All right, now let's talk about the Akai Midi mix. So this is basically Akai's version of the launch control, but in APC Mini form factor, kind of. So it's got all these knobs, it's got a bunch of buttons, and it's got the sliders, but build quality is a little plasticky like the Mini. It's got the kind of little fake faders that are like just okay, but for the price, it gives you a lot of options, and the two of these together could be a fun combo. APC Mini plus the MIDI mix for some knobs could be cool. This one's a little different. We're talking about the Arturia MiniLab. Now, I don't see a ton of keyboard warriors out there these days, but a lot of the OGs swear by the piano keyboard setup. You get a ton of buttons that way, and it's sort of a unique play style that could be really fun, especially if you're like already familiar with playing piano or keyboards. The MiniLab comes with some really cool, nice quality drum pad buttons, as well as some knobs and these little like touch modulation sliders that are really fun. And the V3 comes with a bank of 4 sliders as well. So that could be a really versatile controller to try out. Next up is the Korg Nano Control. The Nano Control is another one that a lot of the OGs really love. It was super popular for quite some time there, and I know a lot of people still swear by them. It's super tiny, sort of a wide rectangle. It has a bunch of little buttons, but it's got everything you need, just little. So no fat fingers allowed, but if you need to fit your entire setup in a backpack, this one was made for you. Buttons, sliders, knobs. Nice. And its big brother, the Studio, looks pretty cool too. It's a little bit larger, but still sort of a small by comparison to most. And you get a bunch of nice control options with that as well. Lastly, I'm going to talk about the Midi Fighter 3D and the Midi Fighter Twister. These controllers are super fun, especially as a combo. The Midi Fighter has a grid of arcade buttons that are really satisfying to button mash, and it has 4 bank selectors, so you actually get 4 times that functionality. There's also a few buttons on the sides, and the 3D has tilt control that you can map to things like a slider or something, but you like actually tilt it in 3D, so you could get a little weird with it. The Twister has a grid of really nice endless encoders that are also buttons, so that's super useful for mapping all kinds of things, like maybe an effect that you want to turn on and off with a button, but also modulate a parameter with a knob. Lots of fun, and the build quality on both of these is insanely good. They're super rugged, super compact, and they just feel so good to use. All right, so those are a handful of my favorite controllers, and controllers that I think would be good for a VJ who's just starting out. Honestly, they're good for the pros too. Most of these I see out on the road all the time, and they're getting the job done and running some of your favorite shows. So hit those links down in the description, check them out, get yourself your first MIDI controller, mash those buttons, twist those little knobs, and slam some faders, dude. Like, what are you waiting for? Anyway, thanks for watching. If you like this video, like, subscribe, and come back later for more videos. Thanks for watching. Peace.